Leah here, real estate investor coach in Washington, D.C. And today I want to spend some time talking to you about how to purchase your first home. That was one of the questions that came in. Also, another question was how to purchase a multifamily. So that can be somewhat similar. So today what I want to do is kind of elaborate on those topics or answer those questions, okay? So the first one is how to go about purchasing your first home. What I suggest you start off by speaking with a lender. Someone that's going to actually approve you for a loan. There are lenders out there who do provide non-interest financing and interest financing. But it's best that you go out there and you talk to a lender who's going to actually approve you for a loan to be able to purchase your own home unless you plan on using cash. So those are the two options to start with. And normally when they're going about approving you, they're looking at your debt to income ratio, how much money you make per month. They're also looking at your credit score. So those are all the things that a lender is looking at. That's one suggestion. Another thing is that depending upon where you live, there may also be grant programs that are available to first-time home buyers. So you do need to check around, and also the definition of a first-time home buyer can vary for those programs. So sometimes it just means that you can't have purchased a house within the past 3 years. But definitely you want to check with those programs to see if they're available, because typically it's based upon your income, but they'll basically give you like a chunk of the money that you're using to actually purchase the house. So they normally have like certain requirements that you need as far as how much you're going to put down. In DC, there's like even one program that used to say, okay, well, you at least have to put down $500. Then after that, they would give like a big chunk of it, and then they would determine how much the lender was going to give on top of that. So typically you would be using like your own money as far as your down payment, whatever their requirements are. Then you would have the grant program on top of that. And then you would actually have the lender that you were borrowing the money from to finance the rest of the purchase. So there'd be like 3 different sources for those funds. And again, they look at your credit, your debt to income ratios, also how much you make per month. And also sometimes too, they look at like how long you've been on your job. So they do look at all of that. Now, I suggest checking, and the reason why I suggest checking with the grant programs first is because sometimes they only have certain lenders that they'll work with as far as coming in to give that the rest of that funding to purchase the house. And so it's pretty traditional when you're looking to buy your house. So you're getting your funding in line. Once you have your approval letters, then it's safe for you to actually like get in touch with a realtor who's actually going to like take you out to look at houses. So normally they're going to take you out based upon like whatever you're approved for. So if you're approved for like, let's say $100,000, then basically they're going to take you out to look at houses that fit how much you can spend to buy a house for. So it's best to contact your realtor. Your realtor will take you out. And so so I guess I'll go through the whole process with you, because once you find a house, then you write a contract to buy the house. Once your contract is accepted by the seller, then basically it just goes over to the title company. You do need some type of deposit, as I mentioned before. And so if you're going with a grant program, they'll determine how much you need to put into it, or the lender will determine how much. Sometimes they have certain requirements as far as the earnest deposit. But if not, typically it's about 1% of the purchase price, but all that's negotiable. So you'll need your deposit. Then that goes over to the settlement company, also with your contracts. And then during that time, after that period, then you start doing your home inspection. So you have the home inspector come in. The home inspector will look at the house and make sure that, it's in good condition. Typically, if you're using some type of conventional product or also these grant programs, more than likely the house has to be in a certain condition. So they're not going to approve the house if, like, let's say you go in and there's light fixtures hanging down, maybe the refrigerator is missing. If the house needs some type of work, typically you cannot get just a regular conventional loan for those type of repairs. Normally in those situations, that's where people use that 203K FHA loans. And that's where like certain repairs need to be done to the house, because the lenders will not give funding. Your conventional lenders will not give funding if there's so many repairs that need to be done. So a lot of people think that they can just go out there and buy a foreclosure or buy or a short sale, and that's where a lot of times people cannot compete with a lot of these flippers or rehabbers, because they cannot get the funding that they need to be able to buy the houses, because the lenders want the house to be in livable condition. So if it's not in livable condition, then that's when you have to go the route of a 203K or some type of rehab financing. So once you do your home inspection, then if everything's okay, the lender gives like the clear to close. And then prior to that, you'll probably do some type of walkthrough of the house to make sure it's in the same condition that you saw it at before. And then you go to settlement, and that's when the deed is transferred from that person to you. And the closing cost is pretty much about like 3% or so of the purchase price. And also too, your deposit that you put up will also get credited to your purchase. So that's kind of just a brief summary of the process to actually buy a house. And what I was going to say about a multifamily is that with most of these loans that I just talked about, these financings, like if you find a building that's like 4 units or less, typically that's still considered as a primary residence. So anything over 4 units, so if it's 5 units, then that's commercial financing. Anything under that is considered still your primary residence. So it is possible for you to buy something that's a multifamily, and like let's say it has 2 units, it's a duplex, or it's 3 units or 4 units, and still qualify for the same type of financing, as long as one of the units you have to be willing to move into. So of course one of the units you'll have to occupy because you're saying it's your primary residence. So if it's fully occupied, none of the tenants are moving, then that's not going to be something that you can get into and buy as your primary residence. So anything over that, let's say you have 5 units or more, you can get a little bit more creative with that because it's considered a commercial purchase. So there are like, let's say certain, let's say building owners or certain landlords, and they'll work out like deals with you. So if they have a property that's available for sale, there's a whole nother way of like analyzing what the incomes are, or not the incomes, but the rental incomes, as far as analyzing that, looking at like what your monthly expenses are going to be. They should have all that available as far as the water, electric, and then just, so you're looking at the rents, you're looking at what the utilities are, and then you're also looking at like what your holding costs are. So once you compare all that, then you have to make sure that you're making a profit each month on holding the property. And typically, sometimes you'll have these building owners or property owners, and they'll offer some type of seller financing, or maybe they'll try to structure something with you where you can buy the property on terms. But that's something where you more so just have to go case by case and making offers to people that want to sell their properties. But what I do suggest, again, is that if you're somebody that's just starting out, you don't own a home yet, I suggest starting for multifamily, or nowadays too, Airbnb is pretty prevalent. So even if you have like a four bedroom house, you can always consider just generating income by renting out the other units that are in the other bedrooms that are in that house. So that's extra ways to generate income for yourself, save money, and then kind of get into other investments, because it frees up a lot of money for you if you're not actually paying, if you're not paying a mortgage, or if you're not paying like any monthly expenses. So does anybody have questions? Hi Ashley, how are you? Do you have any questions about how to buy your primary residence, or how to buy a 4-unit building? Okay. Well, I don't know if anyone has any questions right now, but if you think of any, you can just go ahead and feel free to drop them below this video, and I'll make sure to tune in to answer them. And also, too, if you're gaining value from these videos, please invite others to the group, and I'll go ahead and, again, I'll answer any questions that anyone has in reference to purchasing their primary residence or purchasing a 4-unit building. Some people may have questions about 203K. There are like different ways to go about that. There's actually 2 different products with that. Or there's also rehab financing. And again, there are products out there that don't charge any interest, if you're interested in interest-free products where you're not paying any interest. Okay, so that's it for today. So if you think of anything, go ahead and drop it below. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.